Hello everyone and welcome to this week's rally show. Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for your amazing feedback that I received for the first edition last week. It was terrific to read and much appreciated. Thank you very much. So before I introduce this week's show, I'd like to thank my advertiser, 5-Star Vehicle Deliveries. If you're getting any vehicles shifted anywhere in the UK, please use these guys. They're right into the rallying and they're fantastic at what they do. So for this week's show, we'll be speaking to Quintin Mullen. Quintin's quite a colourful character, and we'll be talking to him about his dad's career in the sport. We'll also be talking about Quintin's time in the sport and his subsequent ban, controversial ban in 2018, and see what he's up to these days. So, let's go. Right folks, as promised, we have Quintin Mullen with us. How are you, Quintin? Good to see you.
Great to see you, Bob. Been a while. You keep fine?
It's been a long time since we were drunk up at Fort Augustus, falling about the place.
And as we'll get on to, Bob, that was some of the best times of the old rally. And I really miss Ray Mackay, actually. He was a close personal friend. God, I miss characters like him, and yourself.
I've said it for years, it's people that make this sport. It really is. So, we better get started, Pew. Growing up in a rally household, you know, what was it like for you? Did you constantly have rally cars around, visitors coming around to see your dad? He was a great driver.
Fair question, Bob. I never really thought about that before until you asked me now. Yes, full-time rally mechanic, works metros, getting caught taking out a Tony Pond metro up on 2 wheels when I was a teenager and that was probably the last thrashing I got. I never got a thrashing I didn't deserve, by the way, and I've had plenty. But yes, there was always a team of mechanics. He was a wild boy, my old boy, as you know. He lived life to the full, and he had a lot of other hobbies too. That's why he'd kind of given up rallying by the time he was my age. Now he'd given up at 40 and really wanted to get into aircraft and boats, planes, you name it. He was wild, as you know. So I guess to answer your question, by the time I wanted to go rallying and could go rallying, he was already stopped. He was probably already thinking that. The cars as I was 17, there was a Tony Pond Metro that he bought and never used. And I took it out a couple of times. It wasn't meant to, on the road illegally. But he was at the back end of it. He'd been there and done it. You know, he did it in his late 20s up till he's 40. And I think, everyone's different. A lot of people, a lot of my close friends in the Scottish Championship, like yourself, they live and breathe rallying. I miss the crack with a lot of folk, but I don't really miss a lot of the rigmarole and the same old thing. Some folk, that's their whole hobby. Some folk have got other things going on. I'm big into off-road motorbikes and flying and stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll go into that. But,
absolutely.
It was an interesting... He was certainly a great man to grow up around. But, yeah, it was kind of... I was begging him to do stuff and get into it. And he was getting older by then. So, yeah.
So, did he push you into rallying at all? Or was it just you because you've been around it so long?
Not at all. I really wanted to try and do it. He bought me a Nova. Kindly bought me a Nova. I was 5th overall in the park systems, which I think was the space side, and I was sitting 9th overall in international in a Group A 1600 Nova in the Jim Clark. Sitting 9th overall, we'd overtaken Tony Jordan and a load of folk. We're getting a lot of coverage, and I blew out the shafts flat out over a big bridge jump on the last day. But I did those 2 good events, and that was 8th in the Galloway Hills with it as well. And I did 3 rallies before that, when I was learning that was in an 8-valve Nova. The first 3 rallies I put in a ditch and had a couple of good stages, but then 4 rallies in a Group A Chicken George's car. God, I wish I'd kept that car, but that's like everyone with a crystal ball. I wish I kept the 22B I sold for 14 grand about 10 years ago.
So, your first event, it was the Galloway Hills. You were 8th. I mean, that wasn't your first event, but do you actually remember your first event? Were you nervous and excited?
Yeah, so I was really. I was sick. Put a lot of pressure on myself. I put it in a ditch, and then the second event, I got so drunk the night before that I thought I was blind because I put my head in the Chinese bag on the way home, and my eyes were closed with the sauce. You name it. But hey, that's what the crack's all about, the club and rallying, back in those days. So yeah, did a few rallies in a Nova, then had a few good results in that Group A Nova. The year I was 5th, Chris Meek won his first rally in a Group A GC8 Subaru. And those were the good old days. I didn't really know Jock or Dave Weston or anyone then because I was just a young guy, but a few of them were still there way back then. And after that, we did the 206 Cup, and we were leading the Pirelli by about a minute with Jennings, and everyone was out there. And I went through a gate, like a bridge, parapet bridge, Bob. I lost it. I went through it sideways and scraped both the bumpers. Anyway, I felt like I was God after that moment. I thought no one could touch me. Well, a mile later, the WRC team boss, Prevera, or whatever his name was on the corner that I barrel rolled it end over end 5 times. He came up and said, no one's taking that corner in third. You try to take it in fifth. And I said, well, the worst thing that just happened was this bridge getting away with it. So then I thought I was invincible. But that's the problems of youth, you see. For the next 2 miles, I was probably quicker than anyone. But it wasn't to be, but it wasn't going to last.
Superb, honestly. Yeah. So you moved up the way, didn't you? You went to from the Nova. Did you have an Escort after that? Then you went into
Nova.
Did
the 206 Cup. Did 3 or 4 rounds. Had that bad accident put in the thing. Was in the top 3. Mike Faulkner was doing it then, and Jennings. Was in the leading that 1 round, and then in the 3rd or 5th, and a couple of other ones. Then there was no money to go rallying. My dad helped me with actually Colin helped me with the 206 Cup. What happened was. He was at the Galloway Hills and said, you're fair peddling that Nova. And his dad said the same. Really appreciated that from them. Meant the world to me. And then he had a word with Glenn Varrigal Peugeot to get me sponsorship to run the 206 Cup. So my dad helped a bit, and then that. So we did a few rallies. Then Peugeot kind of have a lot of these one-make championships that are money-making exercise, you know. Right. They kind of dangle a dream, but they charge like through the nose for relatively group end parts. Did a few rallies, and then that was me for rallying for 10, 11 years. Yeah. Sold my small firefighting company 2011, made a few quid. Worst thing that could have happened was I went and bought a Mark II Escort. That's worst right. And best thing. I'd always heard of Escort. Bought this Mark II Escort, had some great times. That's when me and you met, Bob, you know. Fought and took time at a banister, and then me and him became pals, and then we won a lot of 2-wheel drive stuff. My passion's always been the woods. I'm a bit ragged, but I had commitment and brake late as I see myself if I was. So I was much more suited to the woods, and there's a lot of have-a-go kind of car park single venue heroes that would love to say, oh, well, went you there? But there would be 3 or 4 seconds a mile off in the woods because they didn't have the bottle when there's trees either side of them, you know, when there's just a cone to go around for a Sunday hero. Anyway, not taking away, the Escort was just a wonderful year. Hamish Kinlock, what a star of a guy to look after your car, and various other folk helping me out. Just a great year. Martin Forrest, then as Martin, navigators are unsung heroes. I'm going to say this on your show, Bob. They don't get enough praise. A good navigator is 9/10 the battle, in my opinion. So being able to commit on the notes is what separates the clubman from the next guy up. I use the analogy to people all the time. You know, if you are driving home in the dark to a hotel in the middle of Wales for the first time, you're going to lift on every corner until you can see around it. But if it's your own road that you've driven 1,000 times, you know the line to take and you know where you can stay flat, right? That's what a navigator does straight out of the box. If you communicate well and you trust them and you can lean on them. A lot of people, even with a good navigator, don't know how to lean on them or don't have the faith of the bottle, you know, to do that, in my opinion, when I've sat next to a lot of folk teaching them left foot braking and stuff. So that was that. Then after what happened, when I say it was the worst thing that happened was I didn't go working for a few years because at the end of that great season with that Irish Mark II 2-litre I had a great fun with, Robbie Head came up to me and was going to give up rallying and said to me in front of Derek at Caledonian Logistics, very kind of Robbie, I'm very grateful to this. He said, gee whiz, you're just one position behind me in the Evo, and he was there with the station garage sponsor and that. And he goes, I'm obviously getting older. I go, Robbie, you've been a hero for years. He said, listen, I'm going to pass the sponsorship on to you. You need to go into 4-wheel drive. Very grateful to him. Great time in my life, you know, him giving me that opportunity. Caledonian came over to me, station garage gave me free parts. Then I was getting a tire sponsor, and at that time Aberdeen was really busy, Bob. I was getting 30 grand for a window strip. John Wink, by the way, he blames me for getting him into rallying. I love John. He paid a lot for my son's strip, and that was his fettling into rallying. He probably regrets that now because look at what he's spending. But and then AGR paid a fortune, 50 grand for the side of the car, and that was my running cost. That was my engine rebuilds. I was getting the parts and tires and a chunk of money from folk for entries and stuff. But that was my running costs and rebuilds and hotels and giving my crew a steak dinner. You know,
absolutely. I mean, but you talk about the sponsors, Quentin. You repaid them, didn't you? Because you won that year's McRae, did you not? Did you not win the McRae that year in 2012?
I did, yeah. Won the McRae.
Was that 2012?
Won the Borders right after that.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually, the McRae meant a lot to me, but the Borders meant more because and the Snowman in subsequent years my last rally I did before the ban was second in Brian's Subaru, the first time I drove it. Andrew Gallagher, he gave me a good hiding in the first couple of stages, but I'd never driven Brian's car before. So then as I got to feel with it after a couple of stages, I started taking some stripes out of Andrew in the last few stages. But I took that from being down 30 seconds or a minute or something down to just a handful of seconds. But I did myself a disservice jumping in and out of cars, but some would have said very kindly that I was quite good at naturally getting to grips with a car, but I needed a bit of time. I never gave myself enough seat time in one-off cars, and I never watched the DVD or anything. I let Martin do it. I really think I let myself down a bit there. I remember you and Thorburn in 2013 giving me the compliment. I was swapping a second between him and David in their focuses at their peak of their game, both very talented drivers. And then I was putting my Evo on the door handles in between them, second or third in a couple of rallies. And you said, I don't know how you're pushing that thing so hard. And I remember taking a lot of risks and like gritting my teeth. And I was waiting when Martin said right 9 and then right 9 again and then screamed. I'd count to 2 and then brake. You know, that's how I'd buy a little time. But it was working for me. It was maybe brave. I was maybe stupid, probably stupid. Anyway, him saying that, but I then learned to realize as time on how much Ewan took it more seriously and really studied the DVD. But I'm a bit of a foolhardy hero. I'm like, let's fucking dive in the pool and find out if it's cold. I'm not going to dip my toe in. I'm one of them, you know.
So after you won the Border, then for 2014 you got a Focus, didn't you? A shot of a Focus for the Carlisle, and you were just saying about how you get to grips quickly. You won that rally, didn't you?
Yep.
Carlisle, your first time out.
Yeah, Carlisle stages, Bob. Went out and did the Carlisle stages. Bogey was there. We took some time. He was in a new car as well for him, and his first time in his R5, I think. We beat him on the first couple of stages, then he pulled his entry for whatever reason. But we won that rally. We were very lucky on that one, Bob. On the last stage, we got rocked so hard and burst the tyre. I had to do the last stage on 3 wheels, but I knew I was leading. So I was adamant I was having it that day. So she was a hairy last missing a front tyre. But and then what happened with the Focus, a good point. Then we were sitting third or something in one rally, and then another one we did the Scottish. We did 3 rallies in it. But what happened was I got an eye opener into the world of expensive motorsport, and this is where money really talks. I borrowed Paul Ben's kindly. Paul Ben's a great guy as well. He gave me his gearbox casing because we'd had a vibration through the night. Been up all night before the Scottish. Sitting there, and I realised. During the Scottish, when we got a puncture, I kind of was thinking at the start stage line, I'm out my depth here. To be able to push the way, I truly believe people should have a Mark II Escort or a Nova and try their bollocks off, and win the class. Then buy a fancy car and everyone say, oh, there's that twat in that Metro that's getting beaten by the Novas, because he wants to have the fancy car, but he's scared to drive it, right? So I wasn't scared to drive it, but Paul Ben said, he tapped me on the back, cool as ice, and said, lad, that's 10 grand that casing if you crack that one. If you can find one, or you'll have to get it machined. I spoke to someone that might be 30, 40 grand. Okay. I'm like, fuck. And then in the same rally, these world cars, as awesome as they are in the days of, titanium arms and that, late Impreza Focus days where budget was no option. Whilst as hardy as they were and awesome as they were with torque, like what Bruce McCombie's got now, those things are awesome. But everyone's getting old. Like the wiring looms were made of lightweight wire, Bob. They're fragile and frail and cracked. I was going down the road sections, tapping different ECUs in the back to get the lights to work on the dash. And the stress of that and not being able to just dump money and get stuff. And then, of course, we need a mapping issue. Well, there's one guy for that, the O2 Focus. He's almost retired, but he's still got the old laptop that can do it. It was always getting harder to find, I believe, like S12 WRCs. They were becoming museum pieces because rich Belgians bought them after the World Championship, for example, used a load of the spares. Then they go down some hands. But then it becomes like a bidding frenzy to buy an intercooler or an ECU. And that's where I was at that period. It can only be worse now, to be honest with you, in a lot of these things. So that was the end of that. And then I had an Evo for a bit again, and then bought best car I've had since my own right Escort was Callum Mackenzie's Escort. And that's
I was just going to come up with that, Quentin. 2014, you were driving that car. And
that's right.
I remember sitting beside you up at, what was the forest? Near the bin. I can't remember the name of it. And to this day, I was amazed. I still watch that footage, and it was fantastic. But you were buzzing because you just had a fantastic Galloway Hills battle with a couple of Irish guys and stuff like that, and you beat them on the last. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. That was the best rally I've ever had in an Escort, Bob. I was like on the lock stops, clipping bushes and that, and didn't even crack the edge of a fiberglass bumper. Credit to Callum Mackenzie, a true understated hero of mine. I love the guy. Couldn't have set up that car better. There's a guy that if you gave him seat time, I'll tell you, he would take it to most out there. And that car was somewhat, just a great damn car. But when set up right, thanks to Callum and the likes of Keith Robertson helping, great times. But that rally, and when you put an Escort up inside the top 10 of a gravel event, when you're losing so much traction, and stuff like that, in front of Evo 10s and stuff like that, they should be pissed off. They should be at home fucking knitting instead,
So you rate that as your best ever rally car?
Best ever rally car? No. I would say the best ever rally car would have been the Group A Nova, because it was so new and wow, and getting like Tony Jordan saying, "Call me, I'll help you with sponsorship," coming out of nowhere. The fun's always on the way up, Bob. I can imagine. I remember. I mean, this has got to be way worse for the David Bogies and stuff like that. To me, it is. I remember it like, oh God, I was only fourth today. Oh God, I was fifth. I messed up that stage. But when you're coming up from the back of the seating, and then folk are looking out to watch you come speed, that's where all the fun's at. That you've had the fun. It's like if you were some fucking, I don't know, superstar playboy, your first handful of great girlfriends and the boys see you taking them home is where the fun's at. If you're Dan Bilzerian and you've had hundreds on your boat year after year, it means nothing to you.
Maybe that's why I hang about. Maybe that's why I hang about at the back of the field in the results all the time, then, because I'm having great fun.
You have fun than most, Bob, and that's where the crack is. No, but so yeah, but yeah, Callum's car, Mark II Escort, no bigger than 2 litre on gravel, set up well, is without a doubt my favourite car. That's all I'll ever rally again, probably. I have the opportunity to get my license back.
We'll get on to that in a minute. We'll get on to that in a minute, Quentin. We're just about there. All right.
Okay.
So we're now at the 2018 Snowman, right?
Okay.
And finished second overall. It's a fantastic start to the year, and then you get banned. So I'm going to play devil's advocate, Quentin. What happened with the ban? First of all, why did you get banned? Tell the folk why you got banned.
Handful of reasons, Bob. So first of all, I am out with another competitor in SRC that will not be mentioned, and we're out just motorcycling. Okay, doing nothing wrong in the woods up by Durris. Okay, and I stop and speak to God, what's his name again? I've forgotten his name. He's one of the Grampian setup crew, and I said, "Oh, boys, you setting up here? I can't go any further, can I?" "No, you better not." And I said, "I'll phone the clerk of the course, Graham Provost." He said exact words to me, "As God is my witness, it's no problem for you, QA. Don't go in there." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to leave." And I went back the other way. Now, as things opened up to what I'm away to go into, the blue book says you need to have 2 driven wheels and two driven wheels to be counted as illegal wrecking, for example, because you need 2 driven wheels to be in a car to be able to make pace notes if you were cheating, right? I'm on an enduro bike. I don't know how I'm going to write notes and drive a motorbike. But regardless of that, I checked and I left. But at the time, I was organising the STV News. I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, Bob, but not because I'm a great rally driver or was any good. I used my character and my people skills as a professional salesman to get the STV and the P&G to follow me to justify my background for the sponsorship I used to get. So STV were following me. They knew that. Graham Provost asked to speak to them a few times. They wanted me to tout where to get programs, etc. And then so long story short is they come to the event. I've been told it's no problem by Graham Provost. We do the test day. Sponsors paid over 10 grand to have a car from Ireland from the Great McKinstry boys. It arrived. We've raised 30 grand for Children's Cancer Charity. And we're going through scrutineering, and I get pulled aside the minute STV News leave. Okay? Like I've had my word. This is the bit that why I was so hostile. I'm coming to. I've been kissy up my arse to fucking do what I can do for the local aspect of the media coverage. I need to have a chat to you. You can't run tomorrow. What? Well, John Thompson, I think it's Thompson. John Thompson of the Forestry Commission says you're high profile, you and your pals are in the woods all the time, and he wants to set an example of you. I said, I don't give a fuck what he wants. It's got nothing to do with him. Tell him to call the police. Oh, he's tried that a few times. The police aren't interested. That's because there's no trespassing in Scotland. So I said, well, there you go. He said, well, he's a friend of mine. You know, I'm a clerk of the course, and it's kind of my decision. And I said, well, I think this is fucking completely out of order. I've just been used. I've incurred a load of costs. And he said, well, it's my decision, and that's it. So I get to have an appeal. We go into the HQ at Milton McCrathis, and Fiona Moyer and all that there. They're all saying, all of them, let him run. I'm offered not to hand in my time cards and do it for the charity coverage. Okay? No time cards in that. No, John Thompson wants things like that. And this is what happens in a lot of car clubs. Little fucking, just whilst amazing guys like Neil Shanks and that run an amazing rally, and so many marshals and stewards and that do put in their times. Rallying wouldn't happen without them. They're the real heroes and backbone of rallying, okay? But you do get some.
Just be careful what you say, Quentin. I'm the one bloody sued.
No, you're not going to get sued.
No, but just if you, I know what you mean, but just be careful, you know.
Oh well.
If you're naming names and that. Yeah.
Oh no, but I'm speaking very confidently of all these people. They're
yeah, I know, pal.
To generalise, there is some people in the where I'm going with this, Bob, is some members of the past, maybe the MSC or car clubs that have it's their chance to be the president of the club, or who aren't very popular at school or whatever, and now they fucking fancy themselves as Billy Big Bullets. Okay,
absolutely.
Regardless of that, what happened was then I crossed the line the following morning. I said, yes, sir, no, sir, we'll hand him my things. Had the appeal to not do that, and everyone voted to let me run, except for Graham Provost. I then, I'd been informed something about him and laid that on the line. I said, I'm going to drop the nice guy act now. I've heard this is because I'm not something that you would like, blah, blah, blah. It's basically spat out his coffee, and then went outside. My main sponsor had put in this money. He's a big, tough guy, trying to grab him. And that was the end of that. What did I do wrong after that? I don't actually regret it, quite frankly, Bob. I don't give a fuck, right? Because I'm a man. But what I did then was I put up a post on Facebook saying, fuck this shit, I'm done. Got a huge response, like a few thousand likes and 400 something shares. But what I underestimated, Bob, was the power of social media then. Because I personally made the McRae rally happen the year before and ran around, a lot of great guys like Tom Blackwood and various people all chipped in, Barry, loads of all the great rallying community. They were grateful to them all. Because I'd done that, I had a bit of a, your average Ford or Subaru fan was right behind Colin McRae fan, you know, Quinton's done. So he was getting loads of it. Transpired in this court document that came out, and I'll finish my story and I try not to be too long-winded. He got loads of death threats. Quinton's done more for rallying, you never do, you fat cunt, blah, 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 you know. And that wasn't okay. But I appreciate where they were coming from, but they were just trying to help. But I never realised that would happen, Bob, okay? So then, with me putting up that post, him getting that grief and maybe being overly sensitive or whatever, what then happened was there was a letter put to the MSA. He was threatened for his life, did all this stuff. Here's photos. The one thing that was unfair, another thing that was unfair in my opinion, Bob, my opinion, was they put up pictures off my Facebook of a motorbike in the woods. And then I wasn't like to prove it. A motorbike in the woods, 2 of which were on my friend's private ground, like a farmer's road. But that's automatically in the like banned forest or something, you know? Right. And no chances of that. So what happened was, what's unfortunate, and this is what I explained to the guys at MSA recently, if I wanted to, when the Robbie Head kindly gave me the angle to get my license back. I'm very grateful, and I haven't bothered taking it up yet, but it's very kind of him. Now, what I then So aside from the post and there's people doing that, what I then did, Bob, was, but that was in about August, yeah? This was the cream in the thing.
Yeah.
I get this brochure through from MSA, long story short, listing all this stuff. Some of it's not even factual. Pictures from 5 years ago on my Facebook on some private land. There's a picture of a motorbike. You've done all these things. You will come down to the MSA, answer for your crimes and pay a £6,000 fine, and then we'll decide from there. I had to pay a £6,000 fine up front, okay?
Am I right in thinking you couldn't appeal until you paid the money?
That's correct. That was something that, now, Bob, that boys club here, and I hope some folk will understand this for some reason when I did cross the line with some people, because I'm no shrinking violet, as you know. I get this letter from the MSA when a week after my father's just died. Okay, I'm in a bit of a state. It happened in August. It comes through at the start of January. My dad's just like died in a plane crash a week earlier. So I'm as hostile as fuck. I see this as an attack. You know, I've done this, felt this. I got used for the STV thing. I get fucking dumped an hour later. They could have told me 3 weeks before when they were 2 weeks before they do the thing, and it incurred no cost. Right? Pretty dirty, in my opinion, in any man's world, right? So anyway, but what happened is, because I'm so hostile, I get this thing. I write back. I reply to the email. Please read out the following in court as my reply. You can take your £6,000 fucking fine and stick it up your fucking arse, you and your Mickey Mouse court. You're hardly the sheriff. You know, you wouldn't say that to the sheriff's court when you're banned for tonight, because you'd go to the fucking the way I see it is, it's a boys' club, and it was so one-sided and aggressive, and I'm obviously hot and bothered and not really thinking straight. I said, please read this out in court. Well, they did read it out in court. And they were so fucking offended, they gave me 10 times the ban, non-drinking drugs or whatever. You see what I mean? So that's endangered lives, and I've maybe been on my motorbike for 10 minutes and I get 10 times the ban. If that's not an example of how it doesn't really fall in line with the kind of gradient of punishment for the justice system, I don't know what is. But I did call them Mickey.
Sorry, Quentin, I've got to jump in sometimes. So are you saying the ban would have been a year, but you got it extended to 10 years because of that letter in the court?
I'm not sure about that, Bob. I'm saying that you've got a year or so for testing positive for drinking drugs where you're maybe endangering people or whatever. I get 10 years because I think I was so rude and probably spat their tea out and said, how dare he call us Mickey Mouse and tell us to go fuck ourselves? Do you know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, I explained just now the state of mind I was in. Do I regret how I handled that situation with the MSA? Yes. At the time, but I couldn't help it. Do I regret the situation with Graham Provost? He's just a man. He tried to do his bit and all that. And, you know, whilst I think I was really unfairly treated and it was an ego thing with a lot of them, I'm a bit too much of a hothead myself, and I went too far. But no, I would probably handle it the same again today. And to finish that point, if I may, Bob, because I know I just rattle on, you've got to stop me. To finish that point, had I not done what I'd done in rallying, that year I got banned, and the year before I'd been out twice in a world car, charity sponsorship and stuff, using my own escort a couple of times. That was it. You'll notice I was doing less and less. I humbly say, this will blow some people's minds, but I'm just being very honest. I got the offer that year to do the Scottish Rally in a WRC Subaru, and I said no. I was busy at work, it was all paid for me, but the idea of going to do it all again, exactly the same setup, go to the ice rink, and I had some wonderful times in the Scottish Championship. But 5th year in a row, very lucky to say I did that. A lot of sponsors' money, thanks to Robbie Head and all these people on the wagon station garage. Poor Bob Shepherd's dead now. All that snowball effect. But the 5th year in a row, it's kind of like having mince and tatties for your dinner for the 6th night in a row. You just want something else, okay? So had I not done as much as I'd done, had a year or two in the top 3 and won a handful of rounds and all that great times in the escort, had I not quenched that thirst, Bob, I probably would have said, no, sir, yes, sir, more. But I've kind of been there and done it. And I'm quite a sporadic guy. You know, once I'm bored of something, if I get bored of a car and I've had it on the door handles like I don't know, an Audi RS6 or whatever, time to go, because I know its limits now. I'm not one to polish it and keep it for life. I'm not some big one make fan or something, you know. I'm a user and an abuser of machinery, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of the general back.
I've got a question for you, right? As I say, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'll tell you my opinion in a minute. Do you think you should have got some sort of ban?
100%.
What do you think would have been adequate?
I'd have said a year. I would have get going on what other people have been banned for endangering lives or whatever. Drink or if I wanted stuff a year and maybe a small fine, but I made it worse for myself, and I'd explained the timings. I won't go there again. But 10 years for what the potential infraction was without getting to prove it is, to me, a bit like a Hitler dictator regime. You know what I mean? I pissed them off, so I got 10 times the potential fine. But there was huge.
I think it's outrageous, Quentin, to be honest with you. 10 years. I mean, when you consider some of the incidents that's been going on in motorsport for years and years, 10 years is quite outrageous.
Yeah,
there is a train of thought about the PR side of things, with the Forestry Commission and the rally organisers and the police. I could see a wee bit why they'd be a bit upset, and you could see that yourself. I mean, if you're caught, you're caught. Even though you're obviously not pace noting. Of course, you're not pace noting. You're just flying about, right?
Yeah.
10 years. 10 years is ridiculous.
No, exactly. But that's a good point. You see, rightly or wrongly, I do get that PR link. I really do, and I maybe underestimated at that time. But the way I see it is, I know for a fact that the Forestry Commission charge plenty, and it's the only real feed they get. So when it boils down to money talks, they like it doesn't cost them a fraction to grade what they charge for the mileage, and that's not going to damage it. But maybe some people thought it would damage it, and they needed to make a point. But the simple fact of the matter is, these individuals, it should be down to the law. Let the police deal with it. If the police don't follow up on it because there's no trespass, if me and my friends, I'm a man of principle too, we got on the bikes way more than we go rallying at that time and now, and nothing's changed. I won't be told what to do, Bob. I'm not going to be told I've got to sit in and fucking start knitting, because some folk don't like motorbikes in the woods, the rules are in the woods for that. If you were to stop and punch hill walkers or spin the wheels and put stones in their eyes or whatever, that's a criminal offence. But going through on a trail bike, that's no criminal offence. I just think I'm kind of anti-authority. I'm also a firm believer that if you think it's a whole other story which we won't go into, but if you think masks will save you from COVID, it's about as good as having a cardboard fucking bomb shelter.
I know what you mean, Tom. I know what you mean. So after all this, what's your plans now? Are you going to come back? And you just mentioned the fact that you can get your license. Is that now? You can get your license now, or just earlier?
I've got to go down to Banbury, and I'd have to issue an apology. And there's routes to do it sooner. Due to the climate, what I've done, and what it would take me to get back to a current pace, I think, because I'm a competitive guy, I don't see myself coming back, Bob. To be honest, I've got a son now who keeps me busy with quads and model planes, and I've just recently moved to Spain a couple of months ago because my mum's since my dad died, she's but not so much lonely, but to be there for her, a better way of life for my son. I'm commuting back and forth to Aberdeen every couple of weeks, so 2 businesses there. But I really intend to do the rallies, the Silver Fern Rally, and some of the Spanish gravel rounds. So I'm toying with the idea of doing I got my Spanish license easy. They're really passionate. You know what the Spanish are like? They're like the Irish. They're like, okay, let's make rallying happen. There's not as much red tape, and people in Ireland, which I love, that I've always loved about them. Not have they got some of the best drivers and the most amount of world cars there, Bob. They're really passionate. So getting a license here was no problem, but I would like to do maybe the Yaris. My brother and I joked about doing the Yaris one make championship year or something like that. He was going really well this weekend. And he's been having a lot of bad luck. And before, I thought he was certainly overdriving. He's certainly been doing it for a while now. He deserves a couple of wins. His pace is there. I think he wants to win a couple before he leaves it. It's a long way to come from the States to do your local Scottish Championship. Do you know what I mean? But I think he'd like to just nail that one down a couple of times, and I can understand that. I've done it.
It's coming. That one's definitely coming for him.
I think
I would suggest,
Right. And it's got. It's I found anyone that in Scotland, often, well, when I was doing it a handful of years ago, you go down to the BTRD or you go into Europe and stuff, you tend to do quite well. The level of competition has been very good with the Jock Armstrongs, the Ewan Thorburns, the David Bogies, and now like Michael Binney, various people up there. The pace is strong in Scotland, so they are rallies worth winning for a point of kudos or whatever you'd call it.
Right, final question, Q, because I've went over allocated time. What would you do to change the sport in the UK now that you're out in Spain and you see what's going on out there with the rally? And how would you try and make it more affordable and more popular to get people in?
Okay, last question. I don't know how we would do this, but one single mate stuff, I think Mike Faulkner would say the same. It's certainly separated the men from the boys when everyone had the exact same kit. And you know, when you go-karting with your friends, Bob, back in the day, stag do's and all that, you might be better on one corner than me, and I'm better at that. These two escorts, and it's that nip and tuck you want. You don't want folk running away with the best machinery, the us and them sort of thing. You know, I think one of the best things that I felt in rallying was having the underdog feeling of pushing an Evo, a converted Group N car when there's world cars out there. It felt so much better than being Bonnie Prince Charlie with the best bit of kit at the front. You know what I mean? So, to answer your question, can they reduce the cost of the forest? No, things are getting more expensive. Until this thing with Russia, the UK and most of the West has been printing money for years. We've got a huge amount of debt, unlike countries like Norway that have been run well, in my opinion. So with inflation, I'm truly worried about. I want my son to be able to go rallying because I'm a big rally fan like yourself, you know, when he's older. But from the push for the Green Party to the cost of fuel and probably taxation for bigger engines and you name it, I think it's only going to get more expensive and more exclusive. And things, I could see the Scottish Championship sadly becoming 3 rounds of single venue and a couple of shorter gravel rounds or something before it dies out. It's certainly the biggest thing, to answer your question, my biggest fear for rally, and I'm not really answering your question here, but my biggest fear is this: the great men and women that make rallying happen. Neil Shanks is a bit young and he does an amazing job with his team up in space. I'm very fond of them. But so many of the marshals are older and real rally fans. Your average 20-year-old just wants everything for free now, and if he puts a video on YouTube, he's expecting a free Lamborghini. They've got no work ethic. So are they going to stand all day putting up flags and getting bitten by midges for a sport? That's my biggest fear of that. If the skill gap's missing in the oil business and people are being promoted that are donkeys, okay, where's the skill gap getting replaced in rallying? You know what I mean? If folk are more interested in... So I'm not answering your question, Bob, but that's my one.
No, it's all right. Do you know, I mean, I wish we had more time, Quentin. I'll do another interview with you. I've got a bit of a list of questions here. We've just sadly run out of time, so thanks very much. I'm saying thanks very much for coming on, Quentin. I really appreciate it, and that was a terrific piece, and I'm sure our viewers will enjoy it. So, thanks very much.
Wish everyone the best at the space side. I'll be keeping an eye on small pals, and good to speak to you, Bob. You take it easy.
Take care. Bye. Thanks.
So there you go, folks. A huge thank you to Quintin for coming on today and giving us an interesting interview. Whether you agree with the ban or not, I think it's a shame to have somebody with such ability on the sidelines, and I for one can't wait to see him on the stages as soon as possible. I'd like to also thank my advertiser for today again, 5-star vehicle delivery, and I'd like to thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on next week's rally show. Thank you.